Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. For this video, I will be going over the area and perimeter of a circle, and as you can see here, I have a circle. So before we start this lesson, here is the agenda that tells you guys what I will cover in this video. First up, we have vocabulary. Second up, we have pi. Then perimeter of a circle with the formula, and then area of a circle with the formula. So, first up, vocabulary. The first word is circumference, which is the perimeter of a circle, or the length around a circle. If this is confusing to visualize, the next slide will show you what exactly the circumference is, because the next slide just has a picture and labels all these vocabulary words. The second word is area, which is the amount of space in between a 2D shape, in this case a circle. The third word is diameter, which is any straight line segment that passes through the center of the circle. And finally, radius, which simply put is just half the diameter. Okay, now here is the visual that I said I would show you. So circumference is just the area around the circle, so it's this black border, so the circumference would be that. Then the area is this whole white part because it's like the area inside the circle. And diameter is this whole line that just passes through the center, which is this dot over here, and it passes through the center of the circle. And radius is half the diameter, which basically just passes through only half of the circle, and like just goes from one line segment, not all the way through, but stops at the center, which you can see it does in this picture. Okay, next up we have pi. And pi is also is a vocab word that we're going over, but I gave it its own section because pi may not be part of a circle, like it's not anything on a circle, but it's going to be really important for this lesson, and the next slide will show you why. So what is pi and what is the value? So first up, the definition of pi is just the circumference of a circle divided by the diameter. Now the value of pi, so basically pi is infinite and keeps going, so it goes 3.141592 and so on. And there is no fraction that can also match pi. So mathematicians reduce pi to 3.14 as a decimal, or 22/7. And if you think this is the exact fraction, if you were to divide this, you would not get pi exactly, but you will get somewhat close. So math questions will ask you to either approximate pi as 3.14 or 22/7, which we consider the approximate answer, while some will ask you to leave the answer with pi, which is the exact answer. An example is just 234 pi as your answer. So let's get started with the first main part of the video, which is circumference. So the formula for circumference of a circle, so there's two cases. If the diameter of a circle is given, then the circumference would be pi d. So pi, it will tell you how much of it does it want, the exact answer, does it want 22/7 or 3.14, it'll give you that. And then d, which is the diameter, we would multiply the value of pi given with the diameter that is given if we see the diameter. But if the radius is there, we would do 2 times the whatever value of pi they want us to use, and then we use the value of the radius. And this is the same thing as the one above, because you know the pi is the same, it's just 2r instead of d. And remember, radius is half the diameter, so to equal the diameter you need 2 of the radius. So that's why they're both valid. So now an example problem that I'll solve, and then the next slide you can solve it, a different one obviously. So here I have find the circumference, use 3.14 for pi. So let's see, it doesn't tell us if this is the diameter of the radius, but if we remember from our vocab words, diameter goes all the way through the center and radius is only half of it. So as we can tell, this would be the diameter, so we would need to use this formula over here. So the formula is pi d, and it tells us to use 3.14 for pi, so 3.14 then times, because if a variable is next to a value such as pi, it'll just be multiplication, so 3.14 times the value of the diameter, which in this case is 12. So let's multiply 3.14 times 12, so I'm going to just put it out here, since I don't have a calculator. So we know 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6. Now we bring down the 0 here, so 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is just 3. Now we add this, and we'll get 37, and then the decimal point goes here, 0.68. So the answer for this would be is 37.68. Now here's the tricky part. Is it inches or inches squared? Well, I'm telling you now, it's inches because you're not finding like a space. You're finding the length. The length is always just gonna be always just normal inches, not inches squared. Inches squared is for area. Because remember, circumference is just a fancy term for perimeter of a circle, right? And we know that perimeter we usually just write like, you know, the normal endings such as inches, and inches squared will be for the area of a circle. So yeah, this is how you solve one of those problems. Now we'll move on for you guys problem that you guys can pause the video and solve. And if you need the formula, it's up here. Okay, hopefully you guys pause the video and solve because I'll be going over the questions now. So use 22/7 for the first problem and use 3.14 for the second problem. Ask pi to solve for this circumference. First problem asks us to use 22/7, and we see that the radius is given, and in this case you don't need to find it because it says r over here, so we know it's the radius. So it'd be 2 pi r. So the 2 will stay the same, times, and it's 22/7. And the radius, so this would be times 5. So we know these fractions are over 1, so we can just put the fraction over 1. When we solve, we get at the top 22 times 22, I know is 44. And then 44 times 5, I'm just going to solve it out here real quick. Okay, so I get 220, so it's going to be 220 over 7, and usually I just like to leave it as a mixed number, or as an improper fraction, because it doesn't tell us in which case to like how to simplify and all. But if it asks us, we would do it as a decimal, improper, or mixed number. However it lets us do it. But for now, you guys, if you guys left it as this, it's fine. But for your sake, I'll just simplify it just in case you guys simplified it, so you guys know if you simplified it correct. So if you simplified this, you would get, let's see here real quick. So 3. So it'd be, if you simplify, you know that it goes into it 31 times. So that's 31 times 7 is 217. You'd have 3 left over, so you'd get 31 and 3/7. And if you guys want to check if you like simplified it correct, you multiply 31 and 7, and then you add the 3. So if we multiply 31 and 7, we would get 217, and if we add the 3, we get 220, and then 7, this number still stays at the denominator. So yeah, this would be the answer for this one. Now the next one, d equals 16, we'll do the second one using 3.14. So it would be, and we know the diameter is given, so we'll do pi d, so it would be 3.14 times 16. So I'll just do it to the side here. Six times 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And then 6 times 3 is 18. Now I put the 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. Then you add this. So you'd get 50.24. And I didn't label it, if you guys noticed, because they didn't give us a label, so we can just leave it like this. And usually I just like to give it how the problem gave it to us. Like this gave it as a decimal, leave it as a decimal. This gave it as an improper, leave it as an improper. I just simplified just in case you guys did, so you guys know if you simplified it correctly. Okay, now we will be going over the area of a circle. So the formula for the area of a circle, if the radius is given, is pi r squared, and this is usually the formula we always use. The diameter formula we rarely use because we usually just simplify the diameter and figure out the area by dividing it by 2. Which in this case, if you have the diameter, you would just divide the diameter by 2 to get the radius, and then you would just go from there and use this formula as pi r squared. So I'll go over the area for this one, and then the next problem you can just pause the video and solve it. But for now, I'll do this. So we have 12 inches of the diameter and 3.14 for pi. Remember, this is the diameter because it goes all the way across the circle through the center. So we know it'll be 3.14. And for now, I'm just gonna write it as the radius. So we know divided by 2 would be 6. So times 6 squared. So this is how we're gonna find the area. So 3.14 times 36. So if we were to do this, I'm gonna just solve it out here real quick. Six times 4 we know is 24. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Now 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Finally, 3 times 3 is 9. So we can add this, and we get 4, 10. We get 113.04. So I'll write it out here since it has units in this case. So it'd be 113.4 inches squared. Okay, so remember, area will be inches squared, nothing new for the circle. So yeah, that's our answer. And finally, we have this practice problem which you guys can pause the video and solve. Okay, so hopefully you guys pause the video and solve, and I'll be going over it. So we know 22 over 7 for the first problem. So we have r equals 5, so we're going to use the pi r squared. So in this case it would be 22 over 7 times 5 squared. So it'd be 22 over 7 times 25 over 1. And I'm not going to simplify this time because hopefully you guys remember that I like it as a, you should do it as an improper since it gave you as an improper, unless differently specified in the problem. In this case, it doesn't specify, so you can do either way. In this case, I'm only going to leave it as an improper, so we know it's going to be over 7. But always simplify it. You know how I'm saying leave it as an improper? That doesn't mean if you can't simplify it, you should simplify the improper fraction. So yeah, but in this case, I don't think we'll need to. But let's just see. So 22 times 25, I'll do it over to the side. So 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10, and then 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we get 550, so we put that here, and we get 550 over 7. And the last problem, d equals 16, and we're going to use 3.14. So it'd be 3.14 times, and we can half it, so it'd be times 8 squared, which is just 3.14, times 64. So I'm going to go ahead and do it to the side over here. So So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 4 times 3 is 12. 0, and then 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Then 6 times 3 is 18. Now we can add, and we'd get 200.96. Okay, well, that is all for this video. So hopefully you guys now know how to find the circumference of the circle and the area of the circle using the formulas provided. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Bye.